But yeah, I was born 2 weeks late, and since I was born in there, I grew a third nipple. No, I mean, it's not a big deal. Like lots of dudes have third nipples, so women too. But no, it's just it's like tiny. It's like, you know, you have the two, and like animals have rows and they go down. Like, well, I have a third one here, and like some dudes have four and they have two here. That's my go-to random thing. It's not a very good one. It's really
No,
not. No.
that's very interesting. You were the first person I've met with three nipples, so that's that's a new one for me. I can cross that off my bucket list now.
That was on your list. Meet someone online who has three nipples. It's really not that uncommon. I wish I had like a number for it,
It was
like
actually
percentage
for one,
wise.
so yeah, it's really
It
important.
was what?
He's number one on my list. It's really important to me.
No. Oh, must not be a very interesting list. Holy shit. I'm sorry. Your standards for excitement are really low. I don't know what Jeffrey Tucker's got you doing all day, but oh man, I feel sorry for you. Serving him
Oh,
martinis?
I wish that would be fun. I wish we had a physical bar. That would be fantastic.
Well, I guess you could. I started drinking recently. That's probably more interesting. After
What do you
like
mean you
10 years.
started? As in you really? I'm not sure
Yeah.
whether to say congratulations or whether it's not, maybe you shouldn't be.
Well,
I don't know.
and no, I'm like, I wish I could say I was drunk right now. Maybe I should like, or I should order a drink. No, I've
I mean, we
when
could
I
just go and make drinks right now and come back. I'm sure nobody would mind.
All right, you want to go first? We'll make this Adam's happy hour. I got drinks because I started, like I said, I started drinking recently. I'm ready to go here. Um,
All
I
right,
wasn't planning on
I'm
it.
gonna go.
I'll be, you know
I'm
what?
gonna go
All
make the
right,
Jamie good.
you go, and I'll explain to people why I just started drinking, and we'll tell everybody else to go get a drink, and we'll make this a lot of fun. And I think I got sake. No, what do I have? I have gin. I'm a gin drinker. As of like 2 weeks ago. Uh, but go ahead, and I'll explain to everybody why I just started drinking
Okay, but
again.
I'm not going to make one unless you're going to make one.
I am, but we're gonna. Should we got to take turns. I
Okay,
mean,
we'll
this is
split.
we can't
Okay, all right.
pre-show bullshit
Two more.
session lapse. All right, go.
Okay, going.
All right, everybody, it's just me now. Sorry. Um, oh, and my phone is going crazy. All right, so I stopped drinking when I got back from Iraq because I was dealing with PTSD, and I realized like I was a heavy drinker in college before that, and I was a reservist, so I called my tour in Fallujah my semester abroad, and I enjoyed it. Like it was a great challenge. I was in combat. You know, I didn't have to shoot anybody. I was very lucky in that sense, but I did torture people, and I've spent a lot of time coming to grips with that. And I ran a peer support group for vets with PTSD when I was living in DC, working with Iraq veterans against the war called Homefront Battle Buddies. And I stopped drinking because in the way that alcohol releases your inhibitions, for me it was like releasing the negative things that were like good inhibitions that were holding back PTSD symptoms. So once I got to the point where I like, and now I feel really comfortable drinking because I'm completely, again, PTSD is a really bad way of describing it because it's kind of like on a spectrum. I like to leave the D off. It's not necessarily a disorder, but post-traumatic stress. And when you've I think it's more that I've experienced so much more interesting trauma since getting back from Iraq that my Iraq trauma is like almost irrelevant. Going to jail, solitary confinement, dealing with the psychopaths in my life recently, and now it was actually spurred by the fact that I had to quit smoking marijuana for my probation, and now I started drinking, and I've been really enjoying it. And it's funny because I used to really make fun of people for like alcohol, nicotine, caffeine, status drugs, alcohol, or what was it? It was caffeine, work hard; nicotine, die young; and alcohol, forget that you're a slave. And I was a real drug snob about it, and now I'm just like, no. You know what? Everybody have a good time. Do what works for you. And I'm drinking again. All right, I'll be right back. Keep them entertained.
Okay. You like your drugs state-free. Good luck finding drugs that are state-free. There's nothing that's state-free, Bob. Did everybody get a drink? Did anybody get a drink? So I'm drinking whiskey out of my My Little Pony cup.
Okay, Blue, come here, lay down. Wait a second. Marianne, what are you drinking?
I'm drinking Jameson out of a My Little Pony cup.
Interesting, interesting. I thought since this was kind of spur of the moment, we'd keep it classy. This is a Tanqueray, straight
I
out of the
like
bottle. We'll
Tanqueray.
see.
Rancor is good. Have you ever had that one?
Yeah. What was it?
Tanqueray Rancor. It's the lime one.
No.
Really good.
We'll
All
see how
right, so
drunk I
we
can get in
are.
an hour, and then we can get really interesting we'll see. We'll get some really interesting questions going here. But all right, it's 6:37. I think by Libertarian time, it's 6:30. So let's do it.
All right. Welcome everybody. We're really excited that you're here. This isn't our usual format, but we're just gonna go with it. So I'm really excited to introduce Adam Kokesh. Most of you know him as the host of Adam versus the Man. He's also an author, former congressman who, well, formerly ran for Congress, not former congressman. Is that a sore subject? Do you not want people to know
No,
that your status?
Yeah, really, no, it's embarrassing. But no, I'm proud to say that I lost because I'm not a good enough liar. Sorry.
It's all right. I lost mine too. Okay, so he also fought in Iraq, and he was a member of the Marine Corps. See, what else did they have me saying about you?
It's not true, I swear to God.
He just wrote a new book called Freedom, which is what he's here to talk to all of you about tonight. So without further ado, I will give it away to Adam.
Thanks. That's true. And I just want to say this opportunity, and it's cool to be an author all of a sudden after, being an activist and a rabble-rouser and a podcaster and a YouTuber. But part of the evolution for me was also killing Adam versus the Man. That's right. Adam versus the Man is now a dead brand. It is my former self, an old public persona, if you will. And I think part of the evolution, I don't want to say that I'm not as confrontational anymore, but not as oppositional. I want to confront people's cognitive dissonance, as some people know me from my Man on the Street videos, youtube.com/Adam Kokesh, where I've had a lot of success with, like stick mic interviews, putting people on the spot in a Socratic dialogue format, which is very non-oppositional and very inviting for people to challenge their assumptions and think differently. So Adam versus the Man is no more. It's just me, Adam Kokesh, the author of Freedom, and the new website is thefreedomline.com. So I hope people will check that out. The book we released officially on July 4th, and it's just been amazing to see the response since then. The virality of this book is incredible, the enthusiasm for it. And I guess I do need to show people, this is like my big bragging of the last few days. I'm sorry I didn't have this pulled up because I really am excited to see this because as you can see on the screen here and on the shirt, the logo is it's a pretty badass logo, pretty inspiring enough that we've got someone who has already got it tattooed on the back of her neck. I thought I was going to be the first getting it across my back as a full back piece, but no, someone beat me to it. And we're at something like 40,000 downloads if you count the 16,000 views for the audiobook on YouTube. And it's just been really, really exciting to see the response. But I'll take a step back and tell the story about writing the book, which started for me when I was in jail. And for those of you that don't know, I do a lot of civil disobedience, or at least I used to before my latest round of felony civil disobedience, which put me in a kind of different category. And for making a video on Independence Day last year, loading a shotgun at Freedom Plaza, yes, the very ironically named Freedom Plaza, 2 blocks from the White House. Oh yeah, that calls for a drink. I hope everybody's having a good time tonight too. And just to show you how unplanned this crazy drug consumption is, yeah, I'm drinking gin straight out of the bottle. So I ended up going to jail for 4 months and did 2 months in solitary confinement in what I referred to as my government-induced, taxpayer-funded spiritual retreat. And the challenge was really what was going on the outside and like being isolated from that and unplanned. And I did a really poor job anticipating what was going to happen. I wasn't ready for it. I had some people working for me that were shady. Unfortunately, my money that was raised for my legal defense fund was stolen while I was in jail. But on the inside, I was having a great time. I mean, plenty of time to sleep in, catch up on reading, excuse me, do some yoga, work out. Although the first 3 days I was in kind of a torture chamber. I know it's a bit of an exaggeration, but like I said, I tortured people in Iraq, so and relatively mildly, but I'm sleep deprivation, things like that. But I'm in a very small club of people who can say that I have tortured on behalf of this government and been tortured by this government. So the first 3 days that I was in jail, I was refusing to cooperate and ended up in a room with the lights on 24 hours a day where I didn't have a mattress. I was in shorts and a t-shirt and it was too cold to sleep and there were ants in the cell. And I was on what for me as a 200-pound dude was a starvation diet of 3 bologna sandwiches a day. And in the first 3 weeks, and I know this because I was transferred, I lost 15 pounds. And then I gained it back later. But I was in solitary for the first 2 months that I was in jail. And it was during that time that I came up with the idea for this book. And the book really is unique in a lot of ways. And I've always thought that the most important thing we can do for the movement is win converts, like to get people to embrace true freedom, the message of freedom based on self-ownership, the non-aggression principle, the idea that you owe yourself and it's morally wrong to use force against another human being, and to have the intellectual consistency to want to apply that universally and see how that makes any kind of coercive government monopoly illegitimate. So I've always thought that, like with Adam versus the Man, with my media production, and I had a radio show at first. Like I ran for Congress. Yeah, I know. I'm sorry. Ran for Congress in 2010 as a Republican in New Mexico, and I couldn't shut up when the race was over. So I got a radio show, and then it got picked up as a TV show right before that was going to get canceled, and then the TV show was canceled. This is, of course, by the Russians because I was on RT America for political reasons after 4 months on the air. And I decided to go independent, knowing that this is the future of independent media, that you can support yourself because people like you who believe in the message will support independent journalists. And I'm kind of getting away from that now to focus on the book. And I do my podcast just once a week on Mondays as a call-in show, 6 p.m. Pacific time, adamversustheman.com/live. And I'm actually writing an entire book series based on the book as follows. And we can come back to that later. Let me write that down. And it was really exciting at first to be able to step off and say that I'm going to have faith in the movement and my fans and people who support this message to make it possible for me to be an independent journalist online and to produce YouTube videos and podcasts. And it's really been an incredible experience for the last few years to be able to do that. So I got, I get emails still like every day from people saying, it was you that woke me up, you did this. And I've looked at that, I've studied that and thought about, like, what is it that really wakes people up? And I have to be really humble when it comes to this kind of conversation because it took me about 10 years. Yeah, and it's pretty dense. I was a libertarian in high school because, hey, I'm not going to be a lame Republican or Democrat. Screw that. What are my options? Oh yeah, libertarian. Leave me alone. Sign me up. Because like I was a punk kid. I got in trouble a lot and got kicked out of a high school. So I was, it was a drink to that. To everybody who's gotten kicked out of school, or a bar, or a nightclub, or a church, whatever the case may be. And that's better with tonic and lime. Anyway, I've always thought that converting people was more important than, winning people over on an issue or, getting them to change a position or to think a different way or even building an audience or covering the news from a libertarian perspective or, getting in the headlines. And I've made national news, I don't know, half a dozen times, depending on how you want to count that. And it's always been great, and I've always thought, okay, well, it's a good way to build my audience and bring people in. But if my media operation isn't, right for everybody, then they're going to see me on the news and they're going to come and watch an episode or watch a couple of YouTube videos and then go back to their normal status lives. So I've always asked people this when I meet libertarians, how did you wake up, or what converted you? And for myself, like I said, it was a very long process, but there was a critical turning point for me, and it was reading Ethics of Liberty by Murray Rothbard. And I know, like, I don't know, raise your hand. I know we have a raise your hand button, right? If Rothbard woke you up, and I think there's look at Ron Paul and the incredible effect that he had in growing the movement. A lot of the people that he brought into the campaign disappeared afterward, but the people that read Rothbard stuck around. The people that internalized that message and saw what he was basing his message on really embraced it at a deeper level. And I thought, what are the problems with this? Because most people are with the books in existence, and for me, Ethics of Liberty, I didn't even read it. Sorry, it's funny, I'm here as an author. I barely even read books. I listen to books, that counts, right? But I listened to Ethics of Liberty while I was running for office, and it was a major turning point for me. And what I found is that it really takes that kind of intellectual engagement and private personal introspection to accept the message and really internalize it. And I see there's a comment here from Bob. Audiobooks, yes, another one. Audiobooks for the win. Audiobooks are fantastic. By the way, freedom is free. Despite what they tell you, freedom isn't free. No, freedom is free. You can get it at adamversustheman.com/freedom, including as an audiobook. And we'll come back to that because the distribution strategy for this thing is a lot of fun as well. But you look, one of the cool things about this movement is that you can look to the literature, you can look to the history and see what's out there. And I feel like I did, before I went to jail, a pretty decent survey of the literature. And so I knew what was effective, I knew what was out there, and I knew what the problems and the weaknesses with it were. So most of the books that people are really converted by, first of all, they're too long. Hey, you're not going to hand it to someone on the street and be like, hey, here's 400 pages of For a New Liberty by Murray Rothbard, which is shorter than Ethics of Liberty, which is a lot shorter than Atlas Shrugged, which isn't really a true libertarian kind of conversion book, but it gets a lot of people started. Got tons of people started. And you look at the other works by Rothbard. His closest thing is Anatomy of the State, which is a great shorter philosophical treatise. You can look at The Law by Bastiat. I think that's great. But those raise some other problems as well. And the next one in my list here is that most of these books are too academic. They're not intended for the average person. And I say person, not American, but the average American with the dumbing down thanks to the government-run education system. They don't want to read books. I mean, it's been beaten into them. Books are bad because it's something you do for school, and it's punishment of some kind. And kids know. I mean, kids know that being forced in a school is what it is. It's to tell them it's anything else is to really insult their intelligence. But from the books that I see, For a New Liberty, for example, it really is one of the best books out there for conversion, For a New Liberty by Murray Rothbard. But it's still relatively academic, a lot of historical citations, a lot of academic references, a lot of stuff like that in specifics that make it harder rather than easier for the average person to relate to it. So the other thing is that a lot of them are inconsistent. And if you look at some of the economics-based books, there's a lot of utilitarian arguments as opposed to moral or deontological philosophical arguments. We're going to come back to that as well. But the consistency of voluntarism as a philosophy, or anarcho-capitalism that Murray Rothbard codified, and by the way, as much as I love Murray Rothbard, did you really have to do that to us, dude? You took the worst two possible words for what we're talking about and put them together so that everybody can hate this idea. But that consistency was lacking from a lot of the books that people made in attempts to create simple, easy to understand outreach books. The other problem, they're Amerocentric. Obviously they're based on the American experience or American examples, and here's to America. By the way, we're gonna have fun with the Q&A, so y'all better be drinking to keep up with me here. This bottle was full, and we're already down to there. So I'm like 4 or 5 shots in already. All right, judgmental, and this is a bigger problem for the movement as a whole. But a lot of the books are judgmental about statists and about statism, and it's understandable. Like when you realize, hey, this is nonviolence. You guys are advocating violence to organize society. Holy crap. You want to be like, you're wrong, and it's terrible, and how dare you, you evil statist, you. And that doesn't do it. I mean, everybody knows the guy that was converted by that angry Facebook conversation? Yeah, me neither. So it's a big thing, though, to take it from being judgmental to being a lot more matter of fact. And one of the books, by the way, and I want to really recommend this to everybody who cares about communication at all, but especially libertarians doing outreach to wake other people up, is Nonviolent Communication by Marshall Rosenberg. And if you don't want to read the book, there's some videos of his workshops on YouTube. Really highly recommend it. Again, Nonviolent Communication by Marshall Rosenberg. And it's about getting past judgmental language and being able to communicate directly with people your needs and your wants and your feelings in a way that makes it possible to come up with collaborative relationships and share understanding rather than create oppositional conversations or dialogues. I mean, if you're going to talk to someone, like if you're going to stop and actually exchange words, like why would you want to do anything else? So it's really powerful, and I think that's very important. The other thing is a lot of them are outdated. And as great as the law is, and I think Bastiat, hundreds of years past when he was writing, has served, as an incredible tool for a lot of people and helped a lot of people wake up. But by the way, I just turned 30 for the third time. That makes me 32. I consider myself a part of the millennial generation, and it only if you use the more generous cutoff as to what counts as a millennial am I actually a part of the millennial generation. But I consider myself a millennial because I grew up with the internet. And for those of us who really have that mentality, anything less than that kind of open-mindedness and access to information is deficient somehow. So it's really important to update that. So I came up with the idea for this book while I was in solitary confinement. And I was like, wait a second. You mean nobody's written this book yet? This dumbass? Like the guy that had to go to Iraq to find out that the war was a bad idea? Like this dumbass who's in jail for civil disobedience? Like this dumbass who hired a guy who's stealing all his money right now while he's in jail? Like this guy gets to write this book? No way. And I looked around. I was like, no, it really hasn't been done. And one of the features of the book is that it's very short. It's broken down in a very short subsection, so it's easy to digest. You can take individual parts of it as subsections and and go through it that way. It's not academic at all. It's in very plain language. And I went through and as Marianne asked earlier, how long did it take you to write the book? Well, I spent a lot of time thinking about it when I was in jail, and what I did is I just made notes, and I would just write down, well, the book has to include this, has to include this, has to include this. And then I had all my legal stuff and in and out of court and all that. And then I got out of jail, and I spent 3 days working on the outline and really honing that and making it precise and being very careful with that. And once I had the outline done, and remember the book's only 100 pages, it only took me like 2 weeks to write the book. It was spread out over like maybe 30 days. But there were days when I wrote 8 sections, and it's only 60 sections long. So in 2 weeks, I had at least a complete coherent rough draft. But as soon as I did, I invited 300 people to read it, and I said poke as many holes as it as you possibly can. And I want to give 2 shout outs for this. I do like to call it our book rather than my book because it was very much a collective effort. And as I say in the book, none of these ideas are original or my own, and I don't claim and condemning intellectual property in the book. I'm very clear about the idea that we see further because we stand on the shoulders of giants, but that the idea of claiming an idea as your own, as original, is kind of arrogant in a lot of ways. So it's completely consistent. The 2 shout outs. So in the 300 people that I asked to read the book. About 100 actually did. I know you. I asked a lot of people that I knew weren't going to read it, but it was about 100 people that actually read the book, and about 70 of them just gave me like the thumbs up, liked it, it's good. Let me know when it's done because I want to share it. And then about 30 of them, read it closely and gave me some really thoughtful commentary. And it was about 24, or about a dozen, I should say, that sort of read it line by line and really tried to poke holes in it. Jeffrey Tucker was one of them, and I'm grateful for his influence and his publishing consultancy in this as well. But the two shout outs I want to give specifically are for Bob Murphy, who happens to be the funniest economist ever. If you don't know Bob Murphy, you should. And I believe his website is bobmurphyconsulting.com, but you can look him up, Bob Murphy, Robert Murphy. And he's done a lot of great writing, a lot of great stand-up, a lot of great roast humor. But I asked people to poke as many holes in it as possible. And he did really an incredible job of that, and was really important to be making the book philosophically consistent. And I think it was, and linguistically consistent. I think this is very important. We overlook this a lot in the libertarian movement. And I used to do this in my show. Anytime someone used collectivist language, like anytime anybody referred to the United States as we instead of saying the government or whatever, I'd say, all right, you got to put a quarter in the statist language tip jar thing. And, it's very important to have that. And I had a lot of people that edited with that in mind. But the second big shout out I want to give is to Victoria Higgins, or as I know her from her online persona, Tori Higgs. And she read the book line by line and went through and questioned everything and challenged me on so much stuff. But it really was a collaborative effort. Although it only took me that 30-day period or really 2 weeks within that to write the book, I spent the next 4 or 5 months editing it and just polishing down like every little line, every word, everything I could do to make sure that it was there was nothing you could object to in it, and that it was consistent in its language. And I think because I had the kind of help that I did, I did a really good job in bringing all of that collective wisdom to bear to making it everything it could be. So obviously, now this is cool. If you read the book, you'll see what it means to have a philosophical libertarian treatise that's not Amerocentric. And it's really exciting to see that people we have a thread in the forums.adamversustheman.com for translations. And people are just stepping up already. Like, oh, we got to translate this. We got to bring this message to the rest of the world, because if you wrote a book that was Amerocentric, it wouldn't have that value. But I think, again, the younger generation, the millennials, we very much understand that this philosophy is universal. It's global. It's not about the American government or the American experience. No, it's about the global phenomenon of statism and modern bureaucratic governments and the global statist paradigm as what's holding America back. So that was really cool. Non-judgmental. Again, this is where applying the lessons that I learned from reading Nonviolent Communication came in. And that, you don't condemn the system. You don't even condemn the politicians or the statists. And my background's in psychology. My undergraduate degree was in psychology. And you learn a lot when you study psychology at that level of depth about conditioning and how the environment shapes people. And yeah, this goes back to the typical, well, tell me about your relationship with your parents and what was your childhood like. And it's really true, though, that those things affect people. And one of the things that I learned from my recent experience with a couple of sociopaths and psychopaths in my life is that, even for people like that, you ultimately can only pity people who aren't as fortunate as you in terms of having the positive upbringing or having the mental fortitude or perseverance or resilience to overcome. And when you understand that, sociopaths either, if they're dumb, they become human leeches or con men. But if they're smart, they run for office and become successful politicians or, corporate executives. And when you even you look at someone like Barack Obama and you go, wait a second, he kills children with drone strikes, hundreds of them, and is still doing this. And it hasn't even brought it up for all the protests and all the objections that other people have raised. And it's just no, that's a dude with no conscience. you feel sorry for them and you want to reach out to them. And ultimately it's, about reaching out to statists. If you create an oppositional approach, you're going to drive them further away. If you fight fire with fire, all you get is more fire. If you fight fire with water, hey, now you're onto something. So similarly, if what we're up against is violence, and if you understand statism as violence, institutionalized coercion, the manifestation, or as I say, the institutionalization of all of humanity's worst desires to control and dominate and manipulate others with force, then you want to pity those people. But how do you really, and I'm not taking some pacifist approach here, although I think that's the future of humanity. I certainly assert the right to self-defense when it's absolutely necessary. But if you understand violence is caused by hate or deprivation, or really the root psychological causes of violence, what do you meet that with? Love, understanding, compassion, empathy. And I think that's reflected in the book as well, without being kind of overbearing or taking people out of what they're expecting in a political philosophy book, because it also covers the entire range of of the political issues. And I should be better prepared here and have the table of contents pulled up. So I'm going to go ahead and get that, because I do want to share with people that. But I guess the other thing is the idea of it being up to date in a unique way compared to former or all the previous libertarian manifestos. So there's an introduction. Chapter 1 is the philosophy. Chapter 2, a brief history of power, how we got here. Chapter 3, war, the greatest crime against freedom. And there's one section in there that I think is really cool, at least coming from my experience and being a combat veteran myself. It's called soldiering, and it explains how fighting, being there's nothing brave, there's nothing noble about killing for politicians. And if you do, you're basically a sucker. And I'm really particularly excited about how that section is being used as a standalone piece to talk to people in the military, to give especially, even more importantly, to give high school students and young people some perspective on what it really means to join the military. Number 4, personal security. And this is kind of the standard justice stuff that libertarians like to talk about. Although I've got some unique takes on a couple things. Taxation is chapter 5. Chapter 6, economics. Chapter 7, other destructive government rackets. Had to have a catch-all, and that covers schooling, medical care, welfare, prohibition, the environment, intellectual property. Now, chapter 8, not really new material, but a little bit of a new way of categorizing it and bringing it together. It's called Government and Love. Sex, marriage and family, children's rights, the evolution of parenting, bullying, and racism. Chapter 9, and this is where it gets interesting, and this is, there was one section of the book that I actually wrote when I was in jail. Here's to the government-induced, taxpayer-funded spiritual retreat. And it really is my favorite section of the book. It's called Happiness Causes Freedom. And I want to take a second to explain this, because a lot of libertarians kind of miss this point. It's very important that that we take some perspective on the words of Thomas Jefferson. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And we think of this as a sort of as a series, right? Like one follows the other. If you can't have life, you can't have liberty. If you can't have liberty, you can't pursue happiness. And if you look at it a certain way, it's true. It holds up. But what I came up with was a really a different way of explaining this, and that it's happiness causes freedom. Because, first of all, if you don't know how to be happy, what's the point of being free? If you're not free here in your head, if you don't know how to choose your own demeanor at any time, you're not free. You're an emotional slave to yourself, to your past experiences, to the people around you that want to manipulate you emotionally. But if you have the power to simply say, hey, I'm a free, independent, beautiful human being. I can choose my attitude or my outlook at any time. I know that happiness is a choice, and I'm going to choose to be happy. That's what causes freedom. It's having that internal freedom. So, obviously you can analyze this from every perspective and do it one way or another. But the 4 sections in this chapter are emotional slavery, health freedom, work freedom, happiness causes freedom. And that was the one that I wrote when I was in jail, and I'm very excited also to see how that one is being used as a standalone essay. Chapter 10, though, is where it really gets interesting. The future of freedom. And it's chapter 1, section 1 is the asymptote. And for those of you who don't know, the asymptote is a term from geometry of the point or an exponential growth curve. Or when a mathematical curve goes vertical or hits a line. And I explain it better in the book. But this is an important concept for a lot of libertarians to get just at this point in human history, which is really exciting. It's an amazing time to be alive, and for so many reasons. But we see so many exponential growth curves in the human experience going vertical, essentially. And yeah, I know an exponential growth curve never gets vertical. But from the perspective of our little monkey brains, it might as well be. And the most important one, of course, is computing power. And we all know Moore's law, computing power doubles every 18 months or whatever it is. And what I mean by going vertical is, from our perspective, like right now I could get on the internet and I could look up, where's the fastest computer on Earth, and it would tell me, and I could say it's this fast. But pretty soon, we're coming to the singularity where we're going to have computers smarter than us if they're not already by some measures, or with whatever the government is hiding from us. But it's coming to a point where computers will be making faster computers so fast that the increases in speed in terms of our personal experience are pretty much going to be irrelevant. And one of the other exponential curves that drives is human productivity. And this is one of the things that the Zeitgeist movement has a really good ear to, although, of course, we know they have some silly ideas about property rights and organization, forcing everybody into this global system of blah, 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 central planning, blah, 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 whatever. Here's to the Zeitgeisters who have since been converted to voluntarism. And by the way, a lot of libertarians discount the Zeitgeist movement, but a lot of them, first of all, they're voluntarists. It's really kind of a cool thing to recognize that and talk to them and see that they're on the same page with that core understanding. But Zeitgeist has woken a lot of people up and brought them towards libertarianism, so I'm grateful for that. I got to interview Peter Joseph and had a lot of fun. But I've also interviewed and been invited to speak at or interviewed a lot of Zeitgeisters. So some of those videos you can find on my YouTube channel. I've also gotten an invitation to speak at a Zeitgeist Day event in Baltimore a couple of years ago. It was a lot of fun. So anyway, there's human productivity coming to an increased point where their concept of a post-scarcity society is becoming really relevant. And I know a lot of libertarians out there are already excited about 3D printing, and you see where this is going. We've got nano 3D printing, molecular 3D printing, and I'm thinking that we're going to have plastic and metal on tap, the way that we have water and electricity and the internet data on tap right now. So we see how this is taking off. Someone in the chat said 3D solar panels. Yeah, absolutely. It's a great example. But someone says, print me up some liberty, please. Don't worry, it's coming. Actually, you want some printed freedom? I don't have any printed liberty, but we do have printed freedom. If I can find it, is it here in the studio? Let me see. We have yes, we do. The first 3D representation of the Freedom logo, 3D printed by our friend Brigham Valdez. Yeah, shout out to him. He came up with this, and very cool 3D printed version of the Freedom logo. But you see where this is going, right? I mean, eventually you're going to be 3D printing your food. It's gonna. There's just so many possibilities. I mean, with this technology, where's it going? Are we going to have cars or solar roads, right? No. We're going to have drone taxis dropping little cabs out of the sky. You step into them and they take you up and fly you to your destination. I mean, all of this stuff is coming. You can see how we're on a lot of these exponential growth curves. And if you're a libertarian, you care about where society is going. We're at the point now, like you couldn't say this in the 70s when Rothbard really first codified this philosophy, but you can say this now, like this stuff is coming in the next 5 to 10 years. Look at Bitcoin. I mean, you want to talk about destroying the underpinning of the statist racket of the fiat currency scam? No, look, come on, guys. You got to be paying attention to this stuff. And this is why, you know, this chapter of the book is so important to me. So, and what I think is really somewhat original, although I will say the idea of happiness causes freedom, I'd like to think, if I may, I don't know, please question this, doubt me, be ready with questions in a few minutes here. I'd like to think that this is a little bit of an original intellectual contribution to the intellectual body of libertarianism, talking about happiness causes freedom, emotional freedom. Oh, I'm sorry, the chapter 9, just to go back for a second, the 4 sections: emotional slavery, health freedom, work freedom, happiness causes freedom. That's this part. But then back to chapter 10, the asymptote. The next section is the internet effect. I don't think I have to tell you about that because, hey, look at what we're doing on the internet. But, you know, when you understand statism as violence, then, well, I'll say I had this fantasy. Don't get too excited. No, I had this fantasy that at some point in our evolution, everybody's going to get therapy robots. Yeah, therapy robots. Like, you know, little iPad floating around, you know, in your house on a stick or something, hovering around. And when you yell at your wife, it says, "Wait a second, tell us how you're really feeling." And, you know, it has that kind of effect. But, you know, anytime I look at these trends and I think, Adam, well, okay, if you think this is going to happen, you got to say how it's happening already now. But how many of you have been able to connect to people online in ways that you never would have been able to without the internet? And I'm including things like Match.com, eHarmony, OkCupid. Yeah, but seriously, in a lot of forums for abused children, for people dealing with psychopaths. Like, I've learned so much just in the last few months reading from support groups like that online. Things that never would have been possible before the internet. And since we're already having this effect of having everybody has therapy robots and is therefore, you know, closer to personal full self-actualization and getting away from violence and things like that. So, excuse me. The paradigm shift, that's section 3. I think people are aware of that, but, you know, we see how libertarian ideas, the ideas of universal nonviolence are really taking hold. Section 4, education, activism, and agorism. I don't think I have to explain that to this crowd. Chapter 5, now here's section 5 of chapter 10. This is a really important one. Again, something I like to think of as a bit of an original intellectual contribution to the movement. Here's drinking to my own fantasy. You guys better be keeping up. Better be keeping up. Tell me in the chat. Chat's over there. Right there. Who's drinking? What are you drinking? Hendrix? All right, good. For me, Marion, you better be margarita pitcher number 4. Wine and shots. Excellent. Excellent. I hope someone's smoking weed too. And on Molly. Molly's a great drug, by the way. Rum and coconut water, Black Russian. Oh shit, we're getting some great Fireball and weed, wine, Coors Light. Yes. All right, everybody's keeping up. Good to go. All right, so here we go. Localization. And again, this is not really an original idea, but I think there's some originality, and I hope that people would read this section. And, you know, so far, like, nobody's had any objection to it. But the idea of how we move forward. Are there any South Park fans in the audience? I'll bet there are. A lot of libertarians are fans of South Park, right? Yep. Oh, yeah. Oh, the chat's blowing up now. Okay. Has everybody seen the Underpants Gnomes episode? If not, don't worry. All right. Yeah. Respect my authority. Everybody's watching South Park in another tab anyway, right? Okay, yeah, keeping it interesting. So it's like the Underpants Gnomes episode. Step 1, underpants. Step 2, Step 3, profit, right? Okay, so I feel like that's it's kind of like that with a lot of libertarians. It's like, step 1, paradigm shift. We're going to convince everybody's a libertarian. And then step 2, government collapses. Everybody has gold and guns and you know, a bug out shelter survives and everybody else dies, and step 3, yeah, free society. And it's like, you're not going to win anyone over with that. You got to provide, you know, something that people can latch onto as a realistic means of transitioning to a voluntary society. So, all right, we see from the chat, agorism, baby. Yes, agorism is important. As I already mentioned, education, activism, and agorism is section 4. Section 5, though, localization. And it's a matter of whether it's deliberate or accidental. Because I believe, and this is very much based on my subjective analysis of how things are going in the United States, or with the current, you know, government forces, where things are going. Localization is going to happen whether we want it to or not. And this is governments coming apart from the top down. And for those of you that don't know, I am running for president in 2020 on the platform of a peaceful, orderly dissolution of the United States federal government. And it would be a good first step. So this is what I really believe as the process of how we achieve a free society, because, you know, and libertarians just really like have not combined this with the philosophy and had an answer as to where we go with this, and something that's really consistent about achieving a free society. Now, you know, Sam Konkin, the originator of agorist philosophy, and you know, I highly recommend people reading Konkin as well. He talked about pockets of agorism expanding. I think of it more as like layers of agorism, especially with Bitcoin, of people checking out of the you know, the fiat currency based market, things like that. So it's very important, but at some point we got to go like, well, hey, what do we do about these institutions? What do we do with this property? And localization has a lot of really incredible benefits if we do it deliberately and conscientiously, and we say, hey, look at the unjustly acquired property by government. And this is where, again, a lot of libertarians have fallen short in what they present to people in terms of a transition. And part of it is the idea of property. Now, my response before I thought of this idea to liberals who said, well, what do you do about corporations? What do you do about all these rich people that have gotten all these wealth, you know, all this wealth from blah, 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 you know, they wouldn't have gotten it without the state. And a lot of libertarians have like a pretty bad answer. But this was my answer. My answer was, hey, stop being so damn materialistic. You know, morality is more important. Nonviolence is more important. And I stand by that. I still think that morality and how we move forward and establishing a voluntary society based on universal nonviolence is a lot more important than, you know, than the redistribution of wealth. But localization allows for a lot of reclamation of unjustly acquired property at the local level. And if you're a libertarian and you say, well, the only way to justly acquire property is by trading for it legitimately, or homesteading, or, you know, mixing your labor with natural resources, and you know, then you got to have some better answer for the materialistic liberals than, oh, don't be so damn materialistic. So this is where, again, localization comes in. The final section in this part of the book is this a revolution? It talks about, you know, the personal effect of this. And again, I think the part that I was able to come up with in the writing here that's been so effective in getting people excited about this and spreading it and getting it tattooed on their necks is pretty important, because it's a personal revolution. And then there's the afterward. So anyway, that's my rundown of the book and why I wrote it and organized it the way that I did. Distribution. This is all right. I got my note cards here. One more toast for note cards. If you haven't told us what you're drinking yet. Ooh. Oh, you see that level going down and down, 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 down. It's like that's a lot of gin. I hope you guys are keeping up, because we're gonna have fun in a few minutes here. We're gonna open this up to questioning in about 5-10 minutes. We'll see how long I ramble. All right, distribution. When you write a book like this, it's really hard to. Oh, really? Amber? I don't fucking think so. You can't stop the lecture until you finish it. This would fucking kill me. There's this much gin left in here. Okay, this much. Yeah, seriously. Let's vote on it. I don't fucking think so. All right. Whew. Recharging for round two. Back to the notes. Distribution. This is very important. When you write a book that completely condemns intellectual property, you better make it available for free. And one of the things I'm doing, and then I'm throwing this, here's a shameless plug for the distribution, all right? As if this wasn't a long enough infomercial for freedom as it is. What we got everybody's who's ordered the book has been ordering it on pre-order. But if you go to Adam versus the Man, first, if you go to adamversustheman.com/freedom, it's available for free in every single digital format possible, including as an audiobook. So please check that out and share it that way. But you knew that was coming, right? All right. The printed copies of the book we were basically selling at cost. And I'm really excited. Like I just want to get people to read this. Like I don't care about Adam versus the Man or my media production or anything else. Really, I just want to get people to read this book. And I'm hoping that maybe I'll make some money on the back end with merchandise, whatever. We're selling these T-shirts. They're pretty badass. You want one? thefreedomline.com. We're taking pre-orders right now. Although we got enough pre-orders, I want to say thank you so much to everybody who pre-ordered their books, especially people who pre-ordered 100 packs. Oh man, it's getting warm in here. I don't know if it's me or the alcohol or both. But please go to thefreedomline.com if you're sold on what this book is. If you want to help spread the message, you can get a 100 pack. Check this out, 100 pack with a T-shirt and a tote bag and stickers and bookmarks for $139. That's right, 100 books plus all that for $139. We're getting these out as cheap as we can because, one, we believe in the message, we believe in building the brand, and we believe in spreading freedom as freely as possible. So we also have on the page at adamversustheman.com/freedom the easy print PDF version. So you can print your own, seriously. And if you want to print your own and undercut us, do it. Seriously, we don't care. Like we want to get it out. That's all I care about. You know what? If you can get more people to read it, like my name's not on the cover. There's a little about the author section, like hidden in the back of the book. If you can put your name on the cover and sell more copies than me, do it. I don't care. Like that's like I did. That's when you've come up with something like this and you want to just release it as a gift to humanity, we'll drink to a little exciting hyperbolic language. Remember, I'm a new drinker. I have not been drinking for 10 years. This is insane. All right, so I hope that you guys are having as much fun as I am. The distribution is really important to be. Oh, same thing. Uh-oh, did we lose the connection? No, we have the professor coming in. Marion. All right. Did I go past my 5 to 10 minutes thing? We're almost at an hour already. All right. Do we want to start taking questions?
I just wanted to come online in case you were ready to take questions because you sounded like you were, but if you're not, keep going.
I got a couple more things. Just a couple more things. I want to say that one of the cool things about this book, as you mentioned earlier, Marion, about how good it is in the movement to have some optimism. I hope I'm representing some of that tonight. Although I don't know, it might be the gin talking. Gin makes me optimistic. So does freedom. What can I say? I've heard from a lot of people who have read the book who were either minarchists and this converted them to true libertarianism. And by the way, I will say that minarchism really is a disgusting perversion of libertarianism. But that it cured their anger. And a lot of people who become libertarians who are compelled by this message, who understand the importance of it, they get angry, they get depressed, they get sad, they get frustrated. And then they go out in their activism and say, now join me in my fear and my anger and my depression. And everybody goes, fuck you. I'm going to go back to being a happy slave. But you know what? If you have an understanding of the truth that makes your life better, it's in so many ways. I mean, if you can question, the government recommendations for what's safe to eat, for what's safe for drugs, for whatever it is, you can live differently and be happier as a result. And what you should be saying is, join me in my love and my joy and my happiness. And I think you're going to have a little bit better time doing outreach. So just one more thing here. A lot of people have, maybe in more intellectual debates about libertarianism, talked about the contrasting arguments of deontological versus utilitarian libertarianism. And I just want to say one thing about that, because there are people who have said that the book kind of does both. And I think it's important that we cover both in reaching out to people, that we show people the utility of freedom. But also, when you think of the utility of freedom, if you're measuring utility in widgets or in money or in something more distinctly measurable like that, then you're kind of taking on the role of a central planner. If you're saying that libertarianism is utilitarian because you get more you get more widgets produced and therefore more people are happy, you're assuming you're making an assumption between widgets and happiness. And the book kind of covers both, but really goes more into the deontological arguments, although I really hate that word because nobody knows what the fuck it means. But the arguments of morality and universal principles, because when you talk about those principles, there's a utilitarian element as well, but the measure of utilitarianism at that point is respect for the human will and the ability to maximize human happiness by its own definition, by the divine desires of the individual. And I think that's reflected in the book, and I guess I'll just conclude with that and say thank you very much for sticking with me through this incredible drunken ramble. And I haven't had a chance like this, Marianne, since I wrote the book to really present it like this, even in my own podcast. So it's been a lot of fun, and holy crap, it's been exciting to see all of these chats scrolling through and people drinking with me. So I don't know if you want to bring people on or if you just want to throw questions at me, but let's do it.
All right. So now we're going to Q&A. So if you have any questions, there is a questions tab, and I know we already have a few already. So let's get started.
All right. The first one has popped up. Do you want me to just start reading this? I'll let you read it. You have such a prettier voice than me.
How do you talk to a cop who is actually a great person and who thinks his job is courageous?
Oh, that's such a good question, and there's so much to that. And I do want to point out one of my videos that we did recently about challenging DUI checkpoints that we did here in Glendale, California. And I think it was Cop Block. And by the way, shout out to copblock.org for what they do, for saying that it was one of the greatest examples of having an exchange with a cop. And I actually got him to really admit that the system is corrupt and protects all the bad cops. But how do you talk to them? I mean, talk to them like a human being. First of all, if they think their job is courageous, there's some facts that you can throw at them. And if you understand that, hey, you're 8 times more likely to be killed by a cop than by a terrorist, that puts things in perspective for the average American. But for a cop, who thinks that their job is dangerous, and this is really one of the great social myths in America, that being a cop is dangerous and courageous. And to be fair, there are cops that are well-intentioned, that really do courageous things on a regular basis to help people and go out of their way to help people, and cheers to them. But as I said in this video, there's no such thing as a good cop, because even a good cop is part of a system that protects bad cops. So one of the things that you can point out to them is that being a cop is not even among one of the top 10 most dangerous professions in the United States. And that's an important statistical thing to point out. But is that really going to win them over? Not necessarily. And here's the other thing that's important to separate, I think, when talking to cops, is to say, is to recognize the legitimate services that they do provide. Providing for the public safety, keeping bad actors accountable, stopping violent criminals. And I know everybody, libertarians, are going to say, oh, what, Adam, you love cops? No. But let's try to separate the legitimate services that they provide from the illegitimacy of the system and separate them as individual human beings. So, I mean, how do you talk to them? Get them to read the book. Get them to read Freedom, because there are plenty of sections that really, yeah. Thanks, Marion, for that. Yeah, of course. Yeah, all you got. The answer to every question is get all of the people involved to read Freedom, and then everything will be okay. Um, but no, on a serious level, it's like, yeah, this is how you talk to people, is respect them as human beings, respect them as individuals. And I think that's something that's missed by a lot of libertarians, especially in reaching out to cops, because they are the strongmen of politicians. They are enforcing the will of politicians at the barrel of a gun. So, how do you get past that? Well, it's really and this is kind of taking it off the immediate subject of the question, but it's about forgiveness and understanding and compassion. And if you understand that someone who engages in psychopathic behavior or sociopathic behavior is someone who is incapable of normal, loving, connected relationships, well, what do? You give them what they can't provide: love and connectedness, or love and understanding.
All right.
One or the
So
other.
I'm going to go to the bottom of the list. This is a fun one. Has anyone called you an Illuminati plant based on the triangles on the top and bottom of your new Freedom logo? It says that he's not serious, but that could be a very legitimate question given libertarians.
Read the book and you won't be asking that question. No, it's I think the logo is really badass. I'm going to take this as an opportunity to just plug this badass fucking logo that we came up with, which I did. By the way, 99 Designs, great website, 99designs.com. That's how we got started with this. I put a lot of effort into honing this, and I got to get another plug out for the guys that do our merchandise. It's wheretoprint.com, and these guys do. I got 99 designs and a bitch ain't one. Thank you, David Montgomery from the chat. Yeah, they really helped tweak this design. But wheretoprint.com, these guys are running my merchandise operation now. They do an amazing job, and they want to be the printers for the freedom movement. So if anybody else has any printing needs or whatever, I definitely want to endorse them. They are people who believe in the message and understand what we're doing. The logo, I mean, it's badass enough that someone already got it tattooed on their body, and the book hasn't even been out for like 2 months. Come on, they just and the tattoo was from someone who describes themselves as apolitical and just listened to the audiobook. So come on, it's just I'm floored. But no, I'm seriously, as soon as I can afford it. This is an expensive tattoo I'm talking about, but I'm gonna get this entire logo all the way across my back from shoulder to shoulder. So hey, donate AdamVersusTheMan.com if you want to see that. Maybe we'll have a tattoo Kickstarter, but or crowdfunder, whatever the hell. But no, the logo is something that makes it distinct and universal. I put a lot of thought into this as something that could be a brand for freedom. And one of the cool things, again, about the internationalization of this, the global applicability, is that you can put any word in here. You can put it in a different language, and it's a font and a frame, and it's distinct and recognizable. And you can take the filigree on top and stretch it, or put it on sides and put it on. Okay, that's enough.
I should say, if any of you, if any of you want to jump on video chat, go ahead and hit
Don't
video
be shy.
chat. And this is just to ask your question, and I should be able to pick on you, or not pick on you. I don't want to pick on you. I should be able to choose you and put you on screen. Okay, so we're gonna go with the next question. Richard asks, sadly, I ask, where do I buy that t-shirt?
TheFreedomLine.com.
Okay. All right. Would you be willing to do or to join a Google Hangout after the class?
This is the Google Hangout. Oh, Google Hangout's a pain in the ass. Fuck that.
Okay.
Hey, I'm really easily accessible. You know, you can email me, adam@adamversustheman.com. You can hit me up on Twitter. Fuck Facebook, by the way. Just by the way, I'm trying to get away from Facebook. I'm finally addicted to Twitter, which I love. So at Adam Kokesh, find me on Twitter. But no, I'm see. There's celebrity. There's political celebrity. There's internet celebrity, and then there's internet political celebrity, and then somewhere there's me. Like, I'm not that hard to get a hold of. I'm not that hard. I'm not that hard to reach. Seriously, email me. Actually, after this, I have people waiting for me in my living room. We're planning a divorce party, and yeah. I've got some business meetings after this, but as long as people are asking questions, we'll keep going.
All right. Ryan asks, are you worried that your comments regarding the Las Vegas officers who were killed will drive away people from libertarianism?
That's such, like, you can evaluate that video if you want to evaluate that video in particular as to its effectiveness. I was kind of liberal baiting with that video, and that was kind of an Adam versus the man thing rather than a freedom thing. And like I said, I think I've matured past that, even if only in the last few months with killing Adam versus the man. So I don't think that's going to drive people away. Like, again, it's really there. It's funny, as much as we're an individualist movement, and again, as individualist as opposed to collectivist, I don't really like that split because you can describe libertarianism as being about the relationships between people, and in that sense, totally collectivist, and that it's about, nonviolent relationships. But I don't know. Read the comments, see the results. You can judge my individual videos, but I don't think you can. If libertarianism is the truth, and the truth is that people can get along better in nonviolence than in violence, then you can't really hurt the truth.
All right. Do you think a crisis, such as an economic one, is needed to change the course of statism?
No, it's not needed, but there are going to be more economic crises. People are evolving in their thinking anyway. People are reading freedom, People are getting the message, with or without this book. This is the evolution of human thought. I think an economic crisis will get more people thinking and provides an opportunity for those of us who have already embraced the message and already care about it to reach out to people who are thinking along these lines and looking for answers. But is it necessary? No. It's going to happen anyway. But it's inevitable, and I think of the evolution towards a voluntary society as a global phenomenon. So you might see is it a revolution? No. It's an evolution. So you might see revolutions at a local level or at certain governmental levels. Like, you might see a revolution in the United States if we elect someone, on the platform of dissolving the United States federal government to president. That might be described as a revolution in the United States. But in the global perspective, what are we, 330 million out of 7 billion something, 7.25 billion people on the planet? Like, no, you look at it in the bigger perspective, it's an evolutionary process. And the economic crises that we are going to experience between now and the point at which we establish a voluntary society, when the only economic crises will be much smaller based on, market aberrations rather than, government manipulation, might help in the process in terms of waking people up. But no, I don't think that's unnecessary. I think seeing it in those terms is kind of narrow-minded.
Yeah, I think it's incredibly dependent upon each person. I don't think that you can say that there's one thing that's going to change everything.
Yeah, that's a very good point, because there are a lot of other crises. I mean, look at for example, what's happening in Israel and Gaza right now, right? and how I think, in a sense, Israel has worn out its welcome in a lot of countries, and a lot of the pro-Israel sentiment has finally gone like, no, I don't think so after this. And that's gotten a lot of people thinking. So there are a lot of different things, though, that are going to prod people. You look at what's happening with, like, in the wake of the killing of Michael Brown in Ferguson, Missouri, and Missouri, where like when I read about that story, I was like, oh, I wish we had a freedom quick reaction force. And I see these people, like, gnashing their teeth and in anger and in protest and in grief, thinking, oh, we got to turn to the system for justice. And it's like, no, I wish I could be there and be like, no, please read this book. Please don't get angry. Don't riot. Don't loot. Don't even turn to the system that we live under for justice, but start practicing agorism. Start living differently. Start separating yourself from the systems of violence and coercion.
All right, the next question. What will history textbooks say about the next 50 years of U.S. politics?
Well, one of the things I think about a lot, that I think this book, Freedom, reflects, is the seeing past the collectivism of statism. So the question is of American politics, like, who the hell cares about American politics? In 50 years, it'll be, hey, remember politics, that thing we used to do that was so destructive about collectivism and seeing ourselves as members of a tribe based on government and violent monopolies and circumstances of history and imaginary lines drawn on a map by politicians and wars and blah, blah, blah. And, so the next 50 years of American politics, sorry, what was that? Anyway,
I thought was I muted? Sorry.
No. In that context, I think the next 50 years of American politics will be seen as the psychopathic death spiral. Like, hey, remember those Americans when they got all fucking crazy towards the end of American dominance of the world, and they started, like, doing this crazy border stuff, and that was an issue, and they were, like, all insecure about blah, 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 and, like, they were lashing out at people and trying to maintain their power, and they were killing innocent people abroad, and they were losing their power. I think it'll be seen as kind of the end, the end of the last empire. At least that's what I'm hoping. So there will be some significance to the next 50 years of American history, but it's not going to be, in an American context. It's going to be in that new global context. And I don't mean to say global government, but in a global concept of the human family, and seeing this is one of the things in the book. It's go team people. And I think people are going to see themselves, able to connect with people across borders a lot more than they are today, in a sense that's isolated. So the next 50 years of American history will be seen as the death of an empire. And if you understand what a psychopath is, someone who is incapable of normal, loving, connected relationships, someone who is, without conscience, someone who lies, cheats, and steals and kills without remorse. I mean, that kind of describes government pretty well, doesn't it? There's a pattern to psychopathic behavior as well of, latching on to a victim and then exploiting that victim, and then a sort of self-destruct or discard cycle. And it's more about society discarding the psychopaths who are in charge of government in general. But I think that's how it's going to be seen. As like, I mean, in all of my readings recently, and this is based on my experience of getting rid of several sociopaths or psychopaths in my life recently, which is, by the way, if people want that whole story, there's going to be a book in a few years, but you can listen to my podcast from a few weeks ago that describes, at least in sort of vague terms, about that experience and how I got rid of these people. And I've learned a lot from the experience. I'm really grateful for it. But I mean, for those of you that don't know, basically, my best friend, the guy I thought was my best friend of the last year and a half, turned out to be a con man. And that's a pretty heavy experience. I mean, it's almost as traumatizing as being in combat, and in ways a lot more so. And if you understand the sort of psychological manipulations that sociopaths and psychopaths are capable of, it's a pretty intense experience. And just so people know, definitions wise, I've been talking about psychopaths, and that's generally by the psychological establishment, for what that's worth. About 1% of the population of people who are completely incapable of love and connectedness in their relationships with other human beings. I recently read a book called The Sociopath Next Door. Again, another book that I highly recommend, as long as we're in a authors forum here at liberty.me/you. I'm sure you has been abused as a joke all too many times by Jeffrey Tucker, so I'm not going to go there. But The Sociopath Next Door describes the definition as people who have no conscience, and it's actually about 4% of the American population. Crazy thing is that in other populations, it's like 0.5% or less. So it is somewhat cultural. I would ascribe a lot of that to statism, as encouragement or institutionalization of sociopathic behavior. But when you go through an experience like that, and you have sociopaths or psychopaths in your life that you have to get rid of, you learn a lot about yourself. You learn a lot about how to deal with people and about the nature of evil in the world. And it's actually really kind of encouraging when you go, this is the worst of human evil. It is people that are incapable of love and connectedness. How do you fix that? More love, more connectedness. And I think I've come out of this experience for the better. So, am I still answering the question, or am I just rambling now?
Yeah, we actually have a video question, so I'm going to go ahead and put him on air right now.
Excellent.
This is not a video question. I don't know why I'm here. I was just looking at my face and fixing my mustache.
Well, you have a beautiful mustache, sir.
Well, thank you. Hello, Mr. Kokesh.
Well,
do you remember me?
Now that you're on air,
Hey, if I may, well, hold on, Anthony, if I may interject. One of the best things, I should say the best thing about the freedom movement right now is that we have the best facial hair of all political movements in America, bar none. Just want to point that out, so cheers. To your mustache.
Cheers. Thank you.
Cheers, Anthony. All right, I'm going to take you off video now.
You got it.
No, he's got a question. No, Anthony, what's your question?
The question?
You just have a mustache.
Do you remember me?
I'm not sure. Was your mustache looking like that? Because when I met you, I would have remembered.
No, we never met in person. I was the one that sent the email. I think there was a misunderstanding there because I sent the email probably to an inactive email. But you might not remember it.
All right.
Thanks, Anthony.
Sorry about that.
And for sharing your
cut him off.
mustache.
His facial hair is pretty epic. Okay.
It is.
All right. Next question is from Andrew David. Other than your less confrontational nature, how will Freedom Adam be different than Adam versus the man? What are your future plans?
Well, I will describe that in some non-committal terms because there are some big plans being discussed behind the scenes here as to what's going to happen with Mr. I guess I should change my last name to Freedom, right? And by the way, it's all caps with an exclamation mark in every format, just to be clear.
Please don't do that. That's a terrible idea.
Wait. How many?
I mean, that's a great idea. You should definitely do that. That sounds like a wonderful plan.
And then people can just call me Mr. Freedom, right? No. How many people in the movement go by, fake surnames of like Freeman? I mean, I can't do that.
Who would go by a fake surname. I would never do that.
Wait a second, Marianne. This isn't. No, 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 no. I don't think so. I'm putting you on the spot because I know you. I knew you until today as what?
I have no clue. I don't.
Libertarian girl? I had no idea what your real name is. You were just that hot chick who goes by Libertarian girl. So don't tell me that you don't have...
But I didn't legally change my name, so I guess you can totally adopt, a persona. But whether you should legally change your name, I don't know. I think that's a bit extreme.
Yeah. Oh, so the state recognized legal name. That's what's extreme? What are you, some kind of
Yeah,
statist?
I mean, you'd be a huge statist if you legally changed your name.
As opposed to just like changing it for practical purposes and just doing whatever I wanted with it. Okay. So you can call me Adam Freedom if you want. No, but what are the plans? I really don't know, but like I said, this book is not, I'm not, like, I hope that from people who have been tuning in so far, get a sense of this. I didn't, and again, I didn't really realize this until the book was out. I don't care about anything else in life more than getting people to read this book and embrace the message and understand freedom. So everything I do from now on, and please call me on it if it's not true to this, is about getting people to read the book. I'm trying to get... Oh, I think I skipped over this earlier. Oh, no, I mentioned it. Like, getting people to sponsor a print run of the book for less than $5,000. We don't have the exact number right now, but for less than $5,000, you can get 5,000 copies of the book printed with, the entire inside of the front cover with your advertising and the back page with your advertising. And I will personally hand them out to people and get them out there because that's how much I believe in this right now. What I've been thinking of is how to be a monk for freedom, like really how to live up to this. It's not like, I understand how having a book is like having a kid, and birthing it into the world and having that attitude towards it. But for me, this first book is more than that. And if I may, Marianne, one of the things that I have in my notes that I didn't get into, I'm going to pull this up here on my forums, on my other monitor here, forums.adamversustheman.com, under the Freedom Forum. And I really, really encourage anybody who cares about spreading this message and being a part of this community to join the conversation here at the forums. There's a thread called The Encyclopedia of Freedom, and what I intend to do is write, at least right now, it's 16 more books based on this idea, based on this format in terms of being about 100 pages, very plain language, easily accessible, philosophically consistent, non-judgmental, so on and so forth. And right now I've got, the first one is called Enjoying Freedom, Health Freedom, Economics of Freedom, Achieving Freedom, Justice and Freedom, Nature and Freedom, Youth and Freedom, Science of Freedom, World Freedom, Intellectual Freedom, Educational Freedom, Relationship Freedom, Techno Freedom, Ethics of Freedom, History of Freedom, Spiritual Freedom. And then this one isn't really in the series, but the 17th book would be American Freedom, describing the presidential platform of dissolving the American federal government entirely in 4 years. And the reason that wouldn't be part of the series is that the series has to be globally applicable. And I'm really excited about this, but it's going to be a while before all these books come out. But this is a lot of people need a little bit more intellectual coverage, if you will, before fully embracing freedom. And so That's what I'm doing.
Yeah, I would love to hear your plan to dissolve the federal government. I think that'd be very interesting to hear and hard to convince people of.
It's
Not that
easy.
I'm against
You
it,
know
'cause
what?
I'm all for it, but
Hold on.
we're
Yeah,
just
exactly.
curious.
See, you're up for it. Hold on, Marion. What kind of like outreach have you done on the street to average Americans?
I mean, I do political party stuff and I go to meetings and events and
So you talk
that
to
we
the
meet.
already indoctrinated and propagandized and the most steeped in the bullshit of the
No,
mainstream
I'm a
narrative.
Republican, so they are not like that kind of, they're not libertarians already. They definitely need a lot of work. But yeah, so I'm
Exactly.
not a member of the
And
Libertarian Party. I sacrificed myself as a Republican.
I've said this for a long time. It's easier to convert the average American than the average Republican who or conservative who even might agree with us on a lot of, superficial issues. Because most people get this. Like really, especially millennials, especially young people, especially the movers and shakers in society who have an expectation that things are going to be different. Like they don't have any commitment to the present system and they're open to this. The idea of like dissolving the federal government, they're like, yeah, give me the mechanics, show me how you can do it. Like, and I know you're saying like you're excited to hear it, but like it's very, it's something that people are already very receptive to. You'd be surprised. Get out and talk
No,
to regular people.
I believe you. I just yeah, I don't really go out on the streets. I talk to a lot of people online, and when I'm at events, I definitely talk to people. I wish I had the time to go out and interview people, but I just don't right now. Okay, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 16 more questions. So on we
All
go.
right, let's do it. Well, we'll go until I have people waiting for me here, and when they start barging into the studio, or I got my dog here, Blue. I'll introduce everybody. Blue, say hi. Blue, come here.
Oh,
All right, I guess that's my puppy,
he's
my
beautiful.
love puppy, 100-pound pit Dane mix. Yes, he's beautiful and truly a love puppy in the spirit of the movement. But yeah, as soon as either if he starts looking like he's gonna poop in the studio, or people start barging in here, then we'll stop.
All
All
right.
right, this
When
is
is
from
it all
Tony
right to call the
Styles.
police?
Oh man, that's a good question. That's really tough. And you know what? I've grappled with that myself in a lot of specific situations. Um, it, it, if you understand what the police are, who they are, what they represent, um, then it's really easy to answer that question. But obviously, if you can apply force yourself legitimately and justly, and you know that makes sense for you, then you shouldn't call the police. I mean, really, basically, you should avoid. It's not when should you call the police. The question I think is better answered as when should you not call the police, and that's answered by understanding who they are, what they are, who they represent, and the upsides and downsides of that. And that's probably too long of a question to really completely answer in this context. But if you can handle the situation yourself, obviously don't call the police. If you have if you have a dead body, you probably should call the police, unfortunately, because if you don't, then the consequences are worse. So, I mean, you really just, it's, that's a really tough question to answer because you'd have to write an entire book just to answer that question, like for this scenario or that scenario. But if you understand who and what the police are as the enforcers of government policy, and you understand that they are a perversion of the legitimate service of providing for the public safety and providing accountability for violent criminals, then there is a time. But then, you got to weigh it for the individual situation. There's no hard and fast rule for when you should and when you shouldn't call the police. Because if your car is stolen and you need a police report to cover your insurance or for whatever bullshit that is, then yeah, call the police. But if you can avoid calling the police, yeah, avoid calling the police.
Yeah, my rule of thumb is only when it's a situation that I absolutely cannot handle myself, or when someone's life is in
that's a
danger
good
and
way.
I can't do anything to stop it. Okay. There we go. Do you think that we should be involved with the political system, voting, running for office, etc.?
Ooh, that's a really big question. I think any kind of activism that reduces the coercion in society is worthwhile. So if you can run for county dog catcher and you can somehow respect people's property rights more by holding that office, then it's totally worthwhile. The other thing about this, so I have like two analyses in terms of answering this question. One, can you expect to practically reduce the coercion in society by holding an office? And if you can, go for it. If you really think you can have some positive effect as city council, as mayor, as whatever it is, go for it. If it's worth the effort, and if it's not worse than, say, actually, converting people one-on-one, getting people to read freedom, right? Because it's all about the book. The second thing is if you can use the platform to wake people up. And again, I think Ron Paul showed how you can do that, and he did it in an exemplary manner in terms of taking advantage of the platform to wake people up. And it's like, hey, the government is stealing from you to make itself relevant to pay for all of this. So if you can jump up on that platform and take advantage of it and say, nah, we're going to use this to wake people up instead of to further propagandize people, and you can run an educational campaign for those purposes, absolutely, go for it.
Thank you. I completely agree with that. I catch a lot of flack because I'm a Republican when I'm really an anarchist, and I know that doesn't make sense to a lot of people, but to me it does.
I gotcha.
All right. Do you think that we should be involved with the political... Oh, wait, no, crap. Same question.
Yeah, we covered that.
All right. This should be an interesting one. Do you think Christianity is compatible with anarchism? Does God's rule count?
Absolutely. Christianity is compatible with anarchism, with voluntarism, with true libertarianism. There's no contradiction there in and of itself. When you define libertarianism simply as the non-aggression principle and self-ownership, and I have to say, there are a lot of Christians, and I'm an atheist, but there are, and I don't really like that label, but I'm sort of anti-dogma of any kind. But there are a lot of Christians who are true to those core principles based on their faith. And I think that's very important to recognize that a lot of people are motivated to libertarianism based on that. However, I will say that for myself, at a deeper level of philosophy, there is a contradiction. And for me, libertarianism is a conclusion of an objectivist or philosophical worldview. And in that sense, I do see a contradiction. But because what's most important for moving humanity forward right now is embracing universal nonviolence for people who are Christians, for whom their Christianity motivates them to that, who are philosophically consistent in that, I don't think there is a contradiction. I think it's very important that those of us who are atheist or anti-religious, even libertarians, because of our philosophical grounding, that we embrace and welcome Christians into the movement of achieving a society based on universal nonviolence. For whatever, and I describe religion or faith is sort of wishful thinking, filling in the unknowns. And I know that might sound really harsh to a lot of Christians. But again, I certainly respect that, especially for Christians who recognize that what they believe in is faith and that is separate from how we look at the world objectively. And if we come to the same conclusion, and for them it's from faith, and their conclusion is that we should get along through nonviolence, then we should absolutely welcome and embrace that. And in that case, in that exact understanding, there is no contradiction whatsoever. And I think for those for whom Christianity represents nonviolence, I think it's important that we respect that their faith leads them to libertarianism and really welcome them in that, rather than create some artificial divide through our, deeper philosophical understanding.
Yeah, I think it depends on what your God is telling you to do. If your God is telling you to stone gay people, that's not consistent with libertarianism. But if you're not doing any harm to anyone, I don't see why Christianity or any religion wouldn't be compatible.
Absolutely.
Do I need to waste time talking about liberty on people who are interested only in what Kim Kardashian ate for breakfast?
Well, this morning she had 3 eggs with a spinach omelet with a little kale and garlic and 2 slices of turkey bacon. So I think it is important that we embrace these people as well. No, it's even more important that we reach out to those people and that we show them that there are more important things to be interested in. I mean, like, what's the alternative? You're going to say, oh, fuck you, you're a celebrity worshiper. I don't want to have anything to do with you. And this is like, hey, you don't do politics? That's cool. Politics will keep doing you. And if that's your attitude towards celebrity culture, to the people that are, engaged in that, then you're just cutting people off. No, those are the people that are most important to engage, that have the most to benefit and the most to gain from taking a deeper philosophical worldview. So and this is something that I wish I could give you better answers on, and I hope to be developing these over the next, few months of doing outreach with this book. But people like that are the ones that are in the most need of hearing the message of getting a deeper engagement with the world. So absolutely, if anything, it should be the greatest challenge for the libertarian movement in terms of low-hanging fruit. I'd rather convert the Kardashian worshipers, watchers, whatever you want to call them, than the average conservative who even already agrees with us on most issues. Because if you think about it, the people that are paying attention to the Kardashians, guess what? They're not paying attention to the Palins and the Bidens and the Obamas. They're already a step ahead in a sense, in that they go, hey, this isn't relevant to us. I don't want to have anything to do with it. And in a way, they're practicing a kind of, maybe this is going too far, but intellectual agorism. And if we can just lead them to connecting that to a slightly deeper philosophical understanding of freedom, we can get them to practicing real agorism and real, having a lifestyle that is truly disconnected from the propaganda. And if you recognize that, celebrity culture is a distraction from politics or from more important issues, then the people that are letting themselves be distracted, in a sense, are a step ahead of the assholes that are saying, well, we're going to go team red or go team blue. And those people, are a little harder to convert. So I think those people, and like I said, people that are of that mentality are the people that I wrote this book for. Remember, this is an author's forum, not just a drinking forum, okay, people? So I would hope that the book, as a free audio book, is something that you could get a celebrity worshiper to engage with and see, like, okay, well, hey, guess what? I have fun following the Kardashians. Big deal. Maybe someday they'll evolve past that. But if anything, it's easier to get them to pay attention and listen than somebody who's already got their head halfway up Obama's ass. Because if they don't have their head halfway up Obama's ass, it's up Ted Cruz's ass or Rand Paul's ass or whoever the next, political celebrity worship is probably worse than Kardashian-style celebrity worship.
Okay, we're going to do 2 more. We have so many questions. We're going to do 2 more questions, and we will have to have you back sometime.
Good, because I'm
right.
I'm half a bottle in here.
Okay.
How are you going? What were you drinking again? Jameson in a what bottle? In a what cup?
In my little pony cup.
Jameson. Was it straight Jameson?
I'm a huge fan. Yeah. So, but I'm a huge fan of bronies. Like not like I'm not a brony. I'm just a really huge fan of subcultures. So like bronies are one of my favorite subcultures. So yeah, I really like bronies. And I just said that on camera. Okay, so our next question is, do you think that using government services can help bankrupt government and thus quicken their end?
Yes, yes. Thank you for bringing it up. Absolutely. And I debated this for a while. And while I had a TV show at RT, I remember Tom Hartman. Do people know who Tom Hartman is? The great liberal lion of independent media with the radio show, whatever. Anyway, Tom Hartman. He was like, oh, well, Iran took government social security and blah, 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 blah. So therefore her entire philosophy is invalid. And I was like, huh? Really? No. I think it's actually important. I thought about this a lot before putting it in the book. Remember, this is an author's forum. I'm an author. For reals. No, so I thought that means that I think about stuff. I thought about this a lot before I wrote the book. I think it's actually very important that those of us who care about freedom do everything we can to take money away from government. It's not just about agorism and not paying taxes. If you can take money away from government without contributing to its taking of money, if government has to, put money on the table to maintain its credibility, we take that money off the table. It's less dollars that they can use for the police state or for war or for whatever other propaganda bullshit that they want to put it towards. So absolutely, if you qualify for welfare, people like to make fun of me, and this is like, I guess I see this from the trolls every now and then. Oh, Adam's a disabled veteran. He gets money from the government. Fuck yes, I do. I am professionally insane with PTSD. Although, again, let's take the D off of there. It's just post-traumatic stress. It's not a disorder. But no, if you can take money away from the government, do it. If you do it in a way that's not encouraging them to take more, absolutely. Get that money away from them that they might have to use or they might get to use for the police state or for war or for anything else. So take what you can get. Now, there is one little caveat to that, which is don't be dependent. But if you know that you can be independent, if you're capable of supporting yourself despite whatever government benefits you're getting, yeah, go for it. Do it. There's no shame in that whatsoever, especially when the government has taken so much from all of us and takes so much in opportunity cost, takes so much in taxes, takes so much in the violence of the state. Yeah, get back what you can.
All right, last question. What's the easiest thing we can do to make the world a freer place?
Well, have I not made this clear already? The easiest, simplest, most effective thing that you can do to get people to embrace the message, to make the world a better place, a less violent place, a more harmonious, loving, and cooperative place, is to get people to read or listen to freedom. Boom. I'm out. All right.
All right. Is there any closing remarks you would like to make before I give my last spiel?
Well, yes. If I may put a sort of serious follow-up to that answer, it's not just about the book, although I would hope that everybody would consider this. I wrote the book to be the ultimate outreach and conversion tool, and from the survey of the literature that I've done, I'm very confident saying I succeed. Excuse me, that's the gin talking. I hope everybody's keeping up with me, but I really doubt it because I'm like, I don't even want to show how far into this bottle I am. Seriously though, this book is, if you don't think that it's the most effective outreach and conversion tool, write a better version. And I'm dead serious. Copy it, rip it, change a couple words, put your own name on the cover, whatever the hell it is that you want to do. Wake people up, get people to embrace this message. Freedom as defined as universal nonviolence. This is how we move humanity forward. And if you don't think it's this book, seriously, like, you better be doing something that's more effective as a direct outreach tool, as a way to wake people up. So, please, for the people that already get this, I want you to read it, not to be converted or to have some intellectual exercise, but to behold it as a tool, as something that is an effective way of converting people. And it's broader than that, and a lot of us have a very high intellectual standard. I mean, if you're listening to me right now, I mean, heck, if you've been with me, what is it now? Almost 2 hours? Holy crap, we went overtime. You're probably at a much deeper intellectual level than the average human being, than the average American. Although I would like to think that standard of intellectualism is increasing with technology and the internet in a global sense. But seriously, it doesn't take that much. I mean, wear the T-shirt, rock the stickers, share the book. It's free. It's online. It's digital in every format possible for free, including as an audiobook. Get it out there. Get people to listen to it. Wake people up. Share it with people. If you can get to thefreedomline.com, that's our website now, thefreedomline.com. You can pre-order 100 packs of the book with a T-shirt and a tote bag for $139, because all we care about is getting the message out. That is so much more important to us than making money or anything else. At least to me, that's really all I care about. So I hope that you would care the same way, and I hope that you would think the same way about how we move humanity forward, how we evolve to a voluntary society, how we have fun doing it, how it makes our lives better. And this is the cool thing about this and about this book and about the message as I've captured it. And I think it's not me, it's just what I've brought into this particular work that is the book Freedom, of all of the best of libertarianism, of all of the best of the message of freedom, but also about how it makes our lives better. And instead of saying, join me in my fear and my anger and my depression, we can say, join me in my love and my peace and my happiness and my joy in having understood this and wanting to share it with other people. And I hope that you would join me in wanting to be a part of moving humanity forward in this way.
I want to say sincerely thank you, because you have been incredibly positive, which is definitely not something that we see from libertarians a lot. So thank you so much for joining us. I'm sorry we ran over. I hope everybody enjoyed it, even though we did run over quite a bit. This week we've got Rick Rule teaching a 4-part series on investing. So I hope that you guys will join us, and to check out the rest of our classes, just go to libertyme.classes. And I will see you guys all again soon. Thank you, Adam.
So I ended up going to jail for 4 months and did 2 months in solitary confinement in what I referred to as my government-induced, taxpayer-funded spiritual retreat. And the challenge was really what was going on the outside and like being isolated from that and unplanned. And I did a really poor job anticipating what was going to happen. I wasn't ready for it. I had some people working for me that were shady. Unfortunately, my money that was raised for my legal defense fund was stolen while I was in jail. But on the inside, I was having a great time. I mean, plenty of time to sleep in, catch up on reading, do some yoga, work out. Although the first 3 days I was in kind of a torture chamber. I know it's a bit of an exaggeration, but like I said, I tortured people in Iraq, so and it relatively mildly, but I'm sleep deprivation, things like that. But I'm in a very small club of people who can say that I have tortured on behalf of this government and been tortured by this government. So the first 3 days that I was in jail, I was refusing to cooperate and ended up in a room with the lights on 24 hours a day, where I didn't have a mattress. I was in shorts and a t-shirt, and it was too cold to sleep, and there were ants in the cell. And I was on what for me as a 200-pound dude was a starvation diet of 3 bologna sandwiches a day. And in the first 3 weeks, and I know this because I was transferred, I lost 15 pounds. And then I gained it back later. But I was in solitary for the first 2 months that I was in jail. And it was during that time that I came up with the idea for this book. And the book really is unique in a lot of ways. And I've always thought that the most important thing we can do for the movement is win converts, like to get people to embrace true freedom, the message of freedom based on self-ownership, the non-aggression principle, the idea that you owe yourself and it's morally wrong to use force against another human being, and to have the intellectual consistency to want to apply that universally and see how that makes any kind of coercive government monopoly illegitimate. So I've always thought that, like with Adam versus the Man, with my media production, and I had a radio show at first. Like I ran for Congress. Yeah, I know. I'm sorry. Ran for Congress in 2010 as a Republican in New Mexico, and I couldn't shut up when the race was over. So I got a radio show, and then it got picked up as a TV show right before that was going to get canceled, and then the TV show was canceled. This is, of course, by the Russians because I was on RT America for political reasons after 4 months on the air. And I decided to go independent, knowing that this is the future of independent media, that you can support yourself because people like you who believe in the message will support independent journalists. And I'm kind of getting away from that now to focus on the book. And I do my podcast just once a week on Mondays as a call-in show, 6 p.m. Pacific time, adamversustheman.com/live. And I'm actually writing an entire book series based on the book as follows. And we can come back to that later. Let me write that down. And it was really exciting at first to be able to step off and say that I'm going to have faith in the movement and my fans and people who support this message to make it possible for me to be an independent journalist online and to produce YouTube videos and podcasts. And it's really been an incredible experience for the last few years. But yeah, I was born 2 weeks late, and since I was born in there, I grew a third nipple. No, it's not a big deal. Like lots of dudes have third nipples, so women too. But no, it's like tiny. It's like you have the two, and like animals have rows and they go down. Like well, I have a third one here, and like some dudes have 4 and they have 2 here. That's my go-to random thing. It's not a very good one. It's really not.
That's very interesting. You were the first person I've met with 3 nipples, so. That's a new one for me. I can cross that off my bucket list now.
That was on your list? Meet someone online who has 3 nipples. It's really not that uncommon. I wish I had like a number for it.
It was actually
percentage
for one. So yeah, it's really important.
It was what?
It's number 1 on my list. It's really important to me.
No. Oh. Must not be a very interesting list. Holy shit. I'm sorry. Your standards for excitement are really low. I don't know what Jeffrey Tucker's got you doing all day, but oh man, I feel sorry for you. Serving him martinis?
I wish. That would be fun. I wish we had a physical bar. That would be fantastic.
Well, I guess you could. I started drinking recently. That's probably more interesting. After like 10 years.
As in you. Really? I'm not sure whether to say congratulations or whether it's not, maybe you shouldn't be. Well, I don't know.
No, I'm like, I wish I could say I was drunk right now. Maybe I should I should order a drink. No,
we could just go and make drinks right now and come back. I'm sure nobody would mind.
All right, you want to go first? We'll make this Adam's happy hour. I got drinks because I started. Like I said, I started drinking recently. I'm ready to go here. I wasn't planning on.
I'm gonna go.
I'll be.
Go make a Jameson.
You go, and I'll explain to people why I just started drinking, and we'll tell everybody else to go get a drink, and we'll make this a lot of fun. And I think I got sake. No, what do I have? I have gin. I'm a gin drinker. As of like 2 weeks ago. But go ahead, and I'll explain to everybody why I just started drinking again.
I'm not going to make one unless you're going to make one.
I am, but we got to take turns.
Okay,
I mean, we can't.
Okay, all right.
Pre-show bullshit session lapse. All right, go.
Okay, going.
All right, everybody, it's just me now. Sorry. Oh, and my phone is going crazy. All right, so I stopped drinking when I got back from Iraq because I was dealing with PTSD. And I realized, I was a heavy drinker in college before that, and I was a reservist, so I called my tour in Fallujah my semester abroad, and I enjoyed it. Like, it was a great challenge. I was in combat, I didn't have to shoot anybody. I was very lucky in that sense, but I did torture people, and I've spent a lot of time coming to grips with that. And I ran a peer support group for vets with PTSD when I was living in DC, working with the Iraq Veterans Against the War, called Homefront Battle Buddies. And I stopped drinking because in the way that alcohol releases your inhibitions, for me, it was like releasing the negative things that were like good inhibitions that were holding back PTSD symptoms. So once I got to the point where I could, and now I feel really comfortable drinking because I'm completely, again, PTSD is a really bad way of describing it because it's kind of like on a spectrum. I like to leave the D off. It's not necessarily a disorder, but post-traumatic stress. And when you've I think it's more that I've experienced so much more interesting trauma since getting back from Iraq that my Iraq trauma is like almost irrelevant. Going to jail, solitary confinement, dealing with the psychopaths in my life recently, and now it was actually spurred by the fact that I had to quit smoking marijuana for my probation, and now I started drinking, and I've been really enjoying it. And it's funny because I used to really make fun of people for like alcohol, nicotine, caffeine, status drugs, alcohol, or what was it? It was caffeine, work hard, nicotine, die young, and alcohol, forget that you're a slave. And I was a real drug snob about it, and now I'm just like, no, you know what? Everybody have a good time, do what works for you, and I'm drinking again. All right, I'll be right back. Keep them entertained.
Okay. You like your drugs state-free. Good luck finding drugs that are state-free. There's nothing that's state-free, Bob. Did everybody get a drink? Did anybody get a drink? So I'm drinking whiskey out of my My Little Pony cup.
Okay, Blue, come here, lay down. Wait a second. Marianne, what are you drinking?
I'm drinking Jameson out of a My Little Pony cup.
Interesting. I thought since this was kind of spur of the moment, we'd keep it classy. This is a Tanqueray, straight out of the bottle.
Tanqueray.
We'll see.
Rancor is good. Have you ever had that one?
Yeah. What was it?
Tanqueray Rancor. It's the lime one.
No.
Really good.
We'll see how drunk I can get in an hour, and then we can get really interesting we'll see. We'll get some really interesting questions going here. But all right, it's 6:37. I think by Libertarian time it's 6:30. So let's do it.
All right. Welcome everybody. We're really excited that you're here. This isn't our usual format, but we're just gonna go with it. So I'm really excited to introduce Adam Kokesh. Most of you know him as the host of Adam versus the Man. He's also an author, former congressman who, formerly ran for Congress, not former congressman. Is that a sore subject? Do you not want people to know status?
Yeah, really, no, it's embarrassing. But no, I'm proud to say that I lost because I'm not a good enough liar. Sorry.
It's all right. I lost mine too. Okay, so he also fought in Iraq, and he was a member of the Marine Corps. What else did they have me saying about you?
It's not true, I swear to God.
He just wrote a new book called Freedom, which is what he's here to talk to all of you about tonight. So without further ado, I will give it away to Adam.
Thanks. That's true. And I just want to say this opportunity, and it's cool to be an author all of a sudden after, being an activist and a rabble-rouser and a podcaster and a YouTuber. But part of the evolution for me was also killing Adam versus the Man. That's right. Adam versus the Man is now a dead brand. It is my former self, an old public persona, if you will. And I think part of the evolution, I don't want to say that I'm not as confrontational anymore, but not as oppositional. I want to confront people's cognitive dissonance, as some people know me from my Man on the Street videos, youtube.com/Adam Kokesh. where I've had a lot of success with, like stick mic interviews, putting people on the spot in a Socratic dialogue format, which is very non-oppositional and very inviting for people to challenge their assumptions and think differently. So Adam versus the Man is no more. It's just me, Adam Kokesh, the author of Freedom, and the new website is thefreedomline.com. So I hope people will check that out. The book we released officially on July 4th, and it's just been amazing to see the response since then. The virality of this book is incredible, the enthusiasm for it. And I guess I do need to show people, this is like my big bragging of the last few days. I'm sorry I didn't have this pulled up because I really am excited to see this because as you can see on the screen here and on the shirt, the logo is it's a pretty badass logo, pretty inspiring enough that we've got someone who has already got it tattooed on the back of her neck. I thought I was going to be the first getting it across my back as a full back piece, but no, someone beat me to it. And we're at something like 40,000 downloads if you count the 16,000 views for the audiobook on YouTube. And it's just been really, really exciting to see the response. But I'll take a step back and tell the story about writing the book, which started for me when I was in jail. And for those of you that don't know, I do a lot of civil disobedience, or at least I used to before my latest round of felony civil disobedience, which put me in a kind of different category. And for making a video on Independence Day last year, loading a shotgun at Freedom Plaza, yes, the very ironically named Freedom Plaza, 2 blocks from the White House. Oh yeah, that calls for a drink. I hope everybody's having a good time tonight too. And just to show you how unplanned this crazy drug consumption is, yeah, I'm drinking gin straight out of the bottle to be able to do that. So I got, I get emails still like every day from people saying, it was you that woke me up, you did this. And I've looked at that, I've studied that and thought about, like, what is it that really wakes people up? And I have to be really humble when it comes to this kind of conversation because it took me about 10 years. Yeah, and it's pretty dense. I was a libertarian in high school because, hey, I'm not going to be a lame Republican or Democrat. Screw that. What are my options? Oh yeah, libertarian. Leave me alone. Sign me up. Because like I was a punk kid. I got in trouble a lot and got kicked out of a high school. So I was, it was a drink to that. To everybody who's gotten kicked out of school, or a bar, or a nightclub, or a church, whatever the case may be. And that's better with tonic and lime. Anyway, I've always thought that converting people was more important than, winning people over on an issue or, getting them to change a position or to think a different way or even building an audience or covering the news from a libertarian perspective or, getting in the headlines. And I've made national news, I don't know, half a dozen times, depending on how you want to count that. And it's always been great, and I've always thought, okay, well, it's a good way to build my audience and bring people in. But if my media operation isn't, right for everybody, then they're going to see me on the news, and they're going to come and watch an episode or watch a couple of YouTube videos, and then go back to their normal status lives. So I've always asked people this when I meet libertarians, how did you wake up, or what converted you? And for myself, like I said, it was a very long process, but there was a critical turning point for me. And it was reading Ethics of Liberty by Murray Rothbard. And I know, like, raise your hand. I know we have a raise your hand button, right? If Rothbard woke you up. And I think, there's, look at Ron Paul and the incredible effect that he had in growing the movement. A lot of the people that he brought into the campaign, like, disappeared afterward. But the people that read Rothbard stuck around. The people that, like, internalized that message and saw, like, what he was basing his message on really embraced it at a deeper level. And I thought, like, what are the what are the problems with this? Because most people are with the books in existence, and for me, like, Ethics of Liberty, I didn't even read it. Sorry, it's funny, I'm here as an author. I barely even read books. I listen to books, that counts, right? But I listened to Ethics of Liberty while I was running for office, and it was a major turning point for me. And what I found is that it really takes that kind of intellectual engagement and private personal introspection to to accept the message and really internalize it. And I see there's a comment here from Bob. Audiobooks, yes, another one. Audiobooks for the win. Audiobooks are fantastic. By the way, freedom is free. Despite what they tell you, freedom isn't free. No, freedom is free. You can get it at adamversustheman.com/freedom, including as an audiobook. And we'll come back to that because the distribution strategy for this thing is a lot of fun as well. But you look